to the big earnings show. I'm very, very excited to bring to you all the biggest tech earnings today with our amazing team here at GK, giving us all the color. Of course, this is the place you need to be if you care about technology investing. As of course, here at Gerber Kawasaki, we focus on technology investing, and we have positions in everything that we'll be talking about today. We're very excited for you to show. So let me introduce some of the people we have on the show today. First, we have Eyal Snovich here on the top, who will be bringing us lots of information as it breaks. Say hi, Eyal.
Hello.
Then we have Eva here, who will also be giving us her take on earnings. We have Brett Sippany, who's also a member of the investing group, who will be representing younger generation and viewpoints. And then, of course, Hatan Tuhab, another partner, also bringing in his insights with his multiple experiences and backgrounds. Multiple experience probably just this weekend, right? We're really excited. We like to make this a fun show. So before stuff starts breaking, let's just get right into Tesla. I wanted to throw this out there with the best earnings report I've seen Tesla do yet. It was just, every part of it was good. Earnings went through the roof, and yet the stock was down today. I was a buyer for clients today. I see it as an enormous opportunity as they ramp into this next stage of growth. What are your takes on Tesla? Anybody there want to start?
I mean, what a great quarter, right? I mean, for those people who are still saying that Tesla can't post a real profit, 10x from last year is not too shabby, I guess, right? With $1 billion in net income.
Yeah. And the demand problem is yet to be seen. I mean, they're delivering every single car nearly that they're actually making. It's pretty impressive all over the world. So. Ross, what did you think of any of the updates from any of the factories or any Tesla semi updates or anything like that?
I mean, I think all of that was in line with what I thought, which is it's really hard to do semi and cyber and the cells. And so this is really a 2022 story. But I think the factory completions in Austin and hopefully Berlin by the end of the year, it really sets up for an even more enormous 2022 between full self-driving and also getting semi and cyber going. So, I think the back half of the year is really about managing supply chain and getting the Model S Plaid and the Model X back into full production. And Tesla's going to have amazing numbers for a long time to come. So what's the bad part of the story,
I think for me, one of the most impressive things is every car manufacturer is seeing these chip shortages. And even though Tesla has seen some, they really did not hurt their deliverables, or at least how many cars they delivered.
Well, I mean, it's hurting Model S deliveries. Let's be real; they should be delivering cars, right now, Model S's, and I'm not sure what level is being delivered. So it has affected them, especially in their high-end vehicles. But I think they don't need that to make great numbers, as they've shown.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, he said there's a logistics problem that would make World War II look trivial.
Yeah. And I think for the numbers they produced, so 206,000 cars, 201 were produced and or actually delivered, 206 were ordered. So that kind of spread there, just in comparison to other tech companies. Apple, Google, what we're expecting there is quite high and really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, they're on track to doing over 800,000 cars over the next 12 months, even at the current production rate. So in my mind, they're on track for 1 million cars, over the next 12 months. And it's, really bullish growth for a company that 3 years ago was really struggling to get the Model 3 production line even going.
Yeah. And that level of profitability without a Model S and a Model X, these numbers are going to get awesome once they actually start producing these.
Margins were higher than average was they did deliver some of the high-end plaids, like to me and to others, and so they were able to goose margins a little bit with the higher-end car. Imagine they had sold 15,000 of them in the quarter.
For sure.
Yeah. Automotive margins were impressive for sure.
Yeah.
And full self-driving, the subscription's only going to help them. I hope that we're able to like turn off the subscription and turn it back on, maybe for like road trips and things like that. But I don't see him, doing that.
I doubt that. I doubt that. It's not Netflix, Brett. Come on.
Hey, well, us millennials, we want it, only when we need it, and other than that, we'll shut it off.
I agree. I think at $199 a month, it's super easy to just turn on and off, and I think that more people will actually do it if you have that ability.
That might be
I would love to be able to not drive like 12 months out of the year. So $199 a month.
You turn it on and you wouldn't turn it off because you'd use it all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see it as like, oh, I'm just going to travel to, San Francisco today, so I'll use full self-driving. You can already kind of do that with autopilot. For me, it's about just driving to the office and not having to worry about driving, so I can answer emails and tweet my head off or whatever, So I think full self-driving is the kind of thing you'll turn it on and never turn it off, even if they give you the functionality. But I think they have to complete it for it to really have a material impact on economics of Tesla. But I think that's going to get done this year.
It's great to have are we going to start Tesla's services business, much like Apple now, so that we have the first leg of the software business coming in?
I mean, I think a couple of years ago when we were really into Tesla and people didn't get it, there was this sort of like long shot theory of Tesla, like maybe they'll make it and maybe they won't, but I'll bet on the long shot. Today, I think it's more like Tesla is setting itself up to be the next Amazon. And if you don't see that now, you're basically behind, So like when you see Tesla as a $600 billion odd company today, and you think how does this become a $2 or $3 trillion company? It has an easy path to do that. And I think it's a very achievable goal over the next 5 years. So for an investor not to own Tesla, I think would be one of the biggest mistakes an investor can make.
Yeah.
Just to jump in on another note. So IL, when earnings break, give us the earnings, right? You're going to tell us what's happening.
A few have already broken.
What do we got going now?
We got Microsoft, they beat, and Starbucks also beat, it looks like. Both of them are trading down off those prints. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with Microsoft.
All right. So yeah, I mean, it beat on bottom line, and revenue was 46.2 billion versus 44.3 billion of expectations. So I mean, it's strong, and I think that the story really here is the cloud, right, Eva?
It's Azure, so we want to see, or we're expecting it to rise really sharply here. One of the key things that's really interesting about Microsoft compared to other tech companies is it's extremely diversified. So just in the last quarter, in the last years, buying some of the healthcare space, the artificial intelligence space, the cybersecurity risk IQ that they just put down 500 million for. So that's going to be a key theme that's going to sustain the company over time. What I want to pay attention to as well is PC growth. So we want to see how they're affected by the chip shortage. My assumption and what they've been saying is that it's going to be in the low single digits there.
9%.
And as well as
9%, actually.
What was that?
It was 9% versus 6 expected.
9%.
Yeah, 14 billion
Amazing.
they did in personal computing.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable.
And then
What about
another
the cloud?
area to watch
What was the earnings?
is going to be LinkedIn.
It's funny you brought up some guy I met was like, hey, we should LinkedIn each other. And I was like, I don't LinkedIn. And he was just all set to network that way. And I was like, I don't LinkedIn. And he was showing me this like barcode thing you use now to like, network with all this stuff. And I was like, LinkedIn's come a long way, but I don't use it. But I think it's an important part of Microsoft. And I think your point, Eva, is very valid. Is that it's a very diversified company when you look at PC and software to cloud to gaming. My favorite parts of Microsoft. You've got a diversified tech company, but they're also not in the crosshairs of the government. What I'm looking for is what's their EPS number versus last year.
Can't see that, but I do, just what we were talking about, LinkedIn and cloud services for Azure. Azure was up 51% and LinkedIn revenue was up 46%, actually. That's pretty impressive for LinkedIn.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, for what it does, like looking for jobs and stuff, it really comes into play right now. It's an idea,
Yeah, well,
So the same
APS
period last year was it's up 48% from the same earnings period last year.
Can somebody figure out what the earnings numbers are? Like what
EPS number for the whole year was $8 versus $7.90 as expected.
for the year?
Yeah, for the last 12 months.
Last 12 months. So $8
Yeah.
for the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So, you can assign whatever multiple you want. Right now they're trading between 30 and 40 PE, these tech stocks. So, Microsoft seems to be trading in line with its correct value.
Yep. I mean, just incredible. 69 billion in operating income, 32% increase for the last year. I mean, these guys just seem to be crushing it, even at these high numbers,
And
You know what's sad? Our Xbox content and service revenue is down, Ross. We got to play some more Call of Duty.
gaming
Gotta
is
play
down
some
across
more
the
Call of
board.
Duty.
that cannot be right. How, between all the money in Minecraft, this sounds like a typo, guys. You're gonna have to look deeper. How could that be? How is that possible? Oh, because
I don't know.
last year
You
they
can
had the
play games everywhere.
release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything, all the gaming revenue sectors are down. We had Logitech report right this morning. They're forecasting flat growth, in revenue and earnings. So, expectations for Google also is that YouTube is not going to possibly do as well because their revenue from YouTube watching games played is down also. So we're going to see this as we come out.
Yeah, we're not locked in our houses, so pool time is definitely YouTube time for sure in my household.
Absolutely.
What do we got on Starbucks?
Starbucks had adjusted EPS of 297. Sorry, 320 adjusted EPS. They keep revising it up as they dig through the numbers.
So they're beating their numbers too handily.
Global comparable store growth sales were 21%. It was previously 18%, so that's good. Growing faster.
Good.
Does it mention what they have in China?
China's growth of 18 to 20%. Previously, it was 27 to 32%. So maybe a little bit of slowdown in China there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're going to see this as a theme for all the companies reporting. Is the companies that have enjoyed this China growth might be suffering on this new China crackdown.
Like last we heard from China, they were up 91% in same store sales. So that was a couple quarters ago, but nonetheless, I mean, they were able to capitalize on the pandemic. Starbucks is a company that no matter what was thrown at them, they didn't really flinch as far as earnings go. So it didn't really seem to be affected by the pandemic. But you're right. I think that long term, when we see growth, and especially after such high growth in China, that's going to taper out for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of like plateauing. And also remember, China doesn't really have the vaccine. And so they are still in this weird state of semi on and off lockdown or this or that. The economy's not fully back, but what we're seeing is a deceleration of growth from ridiculously high growth during the pandemic. And I think that's the same thing the video game companies are dealing with too, where, it was a great move up, but now it sort of like goes back to a more normal growth rate. And by no means that's bad because you've already moved up, you move forward. It's kind of the Netflix thing. You move forward your growth, a little bit. So you got to kind of plateau for a year before you really pick up.
Well, they did say, Ross, that their sales are outpacing pre-pandemic levels at this point, which is very interesting. Their revenues are up 78% to that record $7.5 billion number. So, I'm a little surprised it's trading down on that.
Or holding, it's a holding in GK. What a great company, executing great. A perfect example of a great succession plan working with Howard Schultz stepping back and really still getting results from the current CEO. So, I'm very bullish of these companies, Starbucks and Microsoft, short and long term.
Yeah.
I have a cool point. Sorry, y'all. In China, they surpassed 5,000 stores. So there you go.
I just always thought
we don't really think the Chinese are going to go after Starbucks.
I mean, everybody needs their coffee. I mean, hot sound. I think the Chinese are walking a fine line. This isn't about just hurting Chinese companies or U.S. companies that do business in China. This is about power, and it's about guys like Jack Ma, who got too big for their britches, running around billionaires, Pony Ma, running around as billionaires in their yachts and their jets, and that does not jive with the communist line. And it's the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party, and what they're saying is the party is number one. It's not Alibaba, it's not Tencent, it's not going to be any of these things. But to go off and sell Neo, or to go off and sell, Starbucks because you're worried about, China cracking down on coffee drinkers, you're getting to a point where I don't think you're understanding what's really behind the moves that are being made. It's not to destroy the Chinese economy and the Chinese investor. It's about power and Xi maintaining his control. So once again, if you take coffee away from people, you're going to get a riot.
Google just dropped too.
All right, what do we got with Google?
Google looks like ad revenue is 50 billion, cloud revenue is 4 billion. Let's see here. EPS of $27.26 so far. Operating income of 19 billion, margins of 31%. It's trading up on first prints versus Starbucks and actually Microsoft were both down. So
I think that's a beat for Google, and quite frankly, we saw Snapchat last week, right, with just huge numbers. Facebook moved up, Google moved up, and now we're seeing it again. I mean, ad spend is definitely back. Right, that was
7 billion AL in YouTube.
YouTube double.
7 billion
from a year ago. Yeah, but did they mention any hours watched and all that kind of stuff? Because from what I was reading beforehand, is they were asking if that was going to be, a deceleration, because they were expecting like a negative 8% for YouTube gaming watching, which
Google up 2.5% right now.
Yeah, but
so the EPS beat was $27.26, beat the $19 estimate.
Jeez, man, they just keep blowing their numbers away.
Okay.
And just to put that into perspective, last year, the second quarter, it was $10.
As I told Brett, when they don't have to serve all their tens of thousands of employees the lattes and personal masseuses and video game playing all day long, it really helps margins.
Yeah, Microsoft down, you're seeing Google up. I kind of think you have to wait till the conference calls to really make decisions on actions that will happen tomorrow. But you can see with all these companies, they're just hitting it out of the park on a pure earnings basis so far. So we've got Google, we got Microsoft. So we're waiting for Apple. That's usually going to drop in another 10 minutes.
Hey, Ross, Google also approved an amendment for a repurchase program, again, permitting both Class A and Class C shares. So looks like they're doing another buyback, or at least permitting it again.
I mean, they have so much capital between Google and Microsoft, it gets to be absurd,
Yeah.
And Apple too.
They mentioned anything about, maybe it hasn't come out yet, but their partnership with Shopify? I'm very curious to see how this is going to pan out as they try to take on Amazon. But I've been seeing a lot more results from Google when I just, when you search for things to buy, a lot of their stuff is coming up, and they're, Shopify is really making a huge move here with partnerships with a lot of these big companies to try to take out Amazon.
Well, Shopify is clearly making its move against Amazon in a big way. And these are the types of integrations, like from the ad model perspective, that make using Shopify very valuable. You've got commerce, you've got the commerce platform, you've got the distribution platform, and if you add in an ad platform, Shopify is a lot more than opening a website and selling some stuff on it. And my wife runs her business on Shopify, and it's amazing. It was actually one of the reasons I invested in Shopify years back, was just watching her learn how to use it and then implement it, and now runs a multi-million-dollar business through it. And Shopify is life. While many merchants try to use Amazon, it's incredibly restrictive and difficult to use Amazon. The rules are very strict, and you have to deliver everything in a day, and it's really a tough environment. So Shopify, I think, is in the driver's seat in a lot of ways. Also a core holding of ours, not a huge holding, but a core holding of ours at GK as well.
Not to mention that Amazon, if you get big enough, they basically try to steal your IP and do their own thing. And then I don't know if you've seen this thing where they could actually make you sign a contract to say that like they can own part of your business essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon is a giant. It has its advantages and its disadvantages. You know,
So that leads me.
Open platform.
Doesn't that scare you about the antitrust action that's probably going to come from the Biden administration?
You guys spent too much time reading stuff in school. It hasn't been successful. Anti-action.
I don't know, man. You
like,
should leave.
It's
we have.
It's not going to stop these companies. This is exactly what's happening in China. So in America, we can't stop Jeff Bezos. He can go fly to the moon. He can do whatever he wants. But in China, he's like, had enough of Jack Ma, and you'll never see Jack Ma again. You'll never see him in an interview. Right now, he's probably sitting in a shack, happy he's not in jail, because all they have to say is, we're tired of you in China. But in the U.S., they'll never beat the lawyers of these big companies, and that's just a fact. We've just seen our entire economy, dominated by 4 or 5 companies, and you have to own these companies because they are the gatekeepers to almost everything we do. I don't think that's going to change. Sorry.
We did get a question if that Chinese crackdown is going to impact U.S. tech specifically.
Well, I think the impact is more, once again, it's about power. And so she just wants to make sure that nobody's more powerful than him and that capitalism isn't a better system than communism. If capitalism gets in China, it's kind of like, why are we dealing with the communists, right? So, I think she's trying to say, trust me, I know what's best for everybody. We're not going to let Alibaba control your life. We're not going to let Tencent control your life, just like in America where Amazon controls your life and stuff. So I think this is like their antitrust crackdown. And in America, it's the opposite. The corporations win. That's what I think this is.
Yeah, as long as you play by...
In America, you have to prove that material harm has been done to the consumer. Showing that materially is going to be really hard for them to do. And this is the 4th time that antitrust regulators have been coming down on companies like Google. 36 states and the District of Columbia are suing them. And I think again and again, you'll see that no material harm will be shown here.
And they'll pay the fine. It's the cost of doing business, and they move on.
Well, and to that point, there's the argument also that if they do break up these companies, they're actually more valuable as pieces.
Yes and no. I mean, in theory, that may be true, but I think it would weaken these companies on the short term and certainly not be a benefit to capitalism or the U.S. consumer. So it would be hard to argue that breaking up Google or any of these companies makes a lot of sense. I think we're in a global economic war in a way. So if China wants to weaken their companies, that's fine with us, right? It just makes us more competitive globally, and it makes partners want to partner with U.S. companies over Chinese companies because who knows what's going to happen if I partner with a Chinese company. So
I'm not sure that's how the Europeans feel. So.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, the Europeans, do they matter at this point? It's like the Europeans have the worst economy in the world, and the best thing they can do is partner with the U.S. and try to get some growth back, because paying negative interest rates and the way things work in Europe now is certainly not sustainable.
Well, I'm curious, so I just got a new Mac recently, and I finally got to use my little privacy settings that Apple's been rolling out. And I turned off all my Google settings, basically the customized ads, all the stuff that they pretend is for your benefit, which we all know is not. But I turned off all that stuff. So I'm curious, on the one hand, how that's going to affect Google's, ad spend and all that kind of stuff. But on the flip side, does it actually drive more users to Android who want that sort of personalized, don't want their, just getting away from Apple's ecosystem? Because whichever side you're on, you're going to argue that the other side is the worst side.
Yeah, I think Apple, ultimately, many consumers will opt in, and I think ultimately they're still going to be able to serve you ads pretty well, even with the privacy. I don't see it as a negative to protect consumer privacy and give people the option. You certainly can opt in, to getting ads. And we'll see. Watch, I think Apple's going to just blow numbers through the door.
They're starting to move up, but nothing's dropped yet.
Yeah, any minute.
I mean, they asked their suppliers to.
You guys see any questions there?
Yeah, I got another one. Why are these tech companies allowing Bitcoin transactions? What's actually in it for them?
Why are they allowing it?
Yeah, like why? What's in it for Tesla to accept Bitcoin? I think it's one of them is, if you can have another consumer, that's just more sales for your company. So I think like we've also, like Ross, you mentioned, there's been some real estate purchases even next to you. So just another way to access more capital. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, no, think about it the other way. Let's say you got into crypto 5 years ago and you put $50,000 into crypto and now it's worth $500,000 and you want to buy a car. Why shouldn't I just buy a Tesla? Like people want to spend their appreciated Bitcoin if they've owned it for a long time. If you've owned it for 3 months, you're like, this thing sucks. But if 5 years, you're like, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Now, I'm not into spending crypto because I'm going to hold it for probably a long, long time before I spend it because I think it's too immature to spend yet because the Bitcoin I did spend, I heavily regret in my life.
The infamous Dell computer
purchase. I did look up the records. I didn't actually spend 3 Bitcoin on it. It was actually only 1 Bitcoin at the time. So
still hurts.
Cost from
still.
So now it's a $30,000 or $40,000 computer.
We got a question for you too. How have your ads been since changing those privacy settings? Is there anything relevant to what you want anymore, or have you found it less useful?
It's been 2 days, quite frankly. So I haven't really noticed much of a difference. I've been working a lot, so I haven't really noticed much of the ad difference. But I'll definitely keep you guys posted on whether that works or not. My hunch is that it's not going to work that great. There's going to be a way to circumvent it.
Well,
someone else is going to find ways to target you.
Totally, 100%. Yeah, and maybe Apple's going to start feeding me ads instead.
Well, I think this isn't really about targeting as much as data theft. And like, let's say I wanted some basic targeting information for the ad, like IL's this age, he lives in this area, and he spends this much money on video games or whatever. But it's about stealing all the other data that comes with that is no relevance to that company. And yet they take this data and use it and sell it to others. And that's where I think Apple and what's troubling about the behavior of companies like Facebook, even things like apps like Clubhouse, which somehow downloaded all of my contacts and started asking me if I wanted to invite ex-girlfriends from 15 years ago to join Clubhouse. And I'm like, I don't even have these people on my phone anymore, And I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. Like Clubhouse is just stealing data. And why am I not asked that, And so I think this is a real positive for Apple and for consumers. I don't see the negative.
You think Apple will get into the ad business then? Now that you're inside
Apple is in the ad business.
Not like Google is. But.
No, but that's, I think, the point. It's a walled garden. Now, if I want better targeting, maybe I go direct to Apple or I don't know. Honestly, I think Google is in such a dominant position in the ad business and the internet business that I don't see that changing. That's why we own these stocks. Like I just don't when can you remember Google doing crappy? Crappy quarter. I mean, we've done this for a long time. Like when was the last crappy quarter for Apple?
Apple just beat, so not this quarter.
Not now.
So they beat $1.30, beat the dollar estimate. Sales were 81 billion versus 72 billion estimate. So analysts were off $6 billion on Google, and they were off about $9 billion here. So take that for what it's worth. And when you listen to analysts,
we don't have analysts.
Yeah.
We all are analysts.
Remember, the one thing you know about analysts is they're sure to be wrong. Right? For sure to be wrong. But also, I've never seen a CEO not guide low anymore. It's like Tim Cookism. It's like every CEO is like, well, it's going to be a tough quarter next quarter. And they're like, well, everything looks great. Well, it's going to be a tough quarter next quarter.
America's region, 35 billion in revenue, nearly 36, which was up from 27 billion the same quarter last year.
Nice.
That's awesome.
What else? Keep reading.
Services. Services numbers.
Services was 17.49 billion, but I don't know what the consensus was yet. I mean, the numbers are just insane, right? Like they have, $100 billion in cash, biggest bond fund in the world. European sales were up 19 billion from 14 billion in the same quarter last year. So that's again huge beat.
Not much action after hours yet.
It was trading up to 149 and it just came back down. And it looks like we had iPhone revenue was 39.5 billion, which was up from 26.5 billion year over year. So that's again, $14 billion increase year over year just in iPhones. So I mean, talk about a super cycle.
I have a feeling the Mac numbers are going to be great too. I mean, just within our office, we got so many people who are currently or just bought a Mac, and everyone's like looking at these M1 Macs, and they're so much better than the previous version. So I think the Mac numbers are going to continue to be stellar, not just this quarter, but the next couple of quarters.
Anything about chip shortage?
Not yet. There was a few experts that weighed in beforehand saying that they didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Do you want to talk about that cobalt thing with Apple and Tesla?
What about it?
The bomb that Elon just dropped on everyone, in my opinion.
I think everyone was talking about it.
So he had mentioned in Tesla's earning call that Apple batteries are 100% cobalt, whereas Tesla batteries ranging around the 2% mark. And then made a little scoff, coughing under his breath, Apple was the one that doesn't allow investors insight into what's going on, doesn't share how they produce items and all the ESG problems with producing with cobalt. But Hatem made a good point earlier that Apple batteries way smaller than the size of a Tesla battery.
That's true.
Details.
There's no love lost for Apple from Elon.
They sell a lot of phones, a lot more phones than cars.
Here you go for service, y'all. 14 billion. Oh, sorry. For services revenue was 17.5 billion, up from 13 year over year. So $4 billion increase in services.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're seeing people selling these stocks after hours so far, and it's like I think it's like just the sell the news type of thing where these stocks are getting into earnings, then they report great numbers, and then people sell the news, and it's a great opportunity for investors to add to their positions.
I want to know who gets up in the morning and says, "I'm going to sell Microsoft, Google, and Apple today."
I know people.
It's not. It's just a computer algorithm.
I know. I just say
China grew a lot.
We
had 14.76 billion in China, up from 9 billion same quarter last year. So that's growing.
There you
$6
go.
billion year over year.
You play by Xi's rules, and you get rewarded.
Yeah. Apple gives them the servers. Apple lets Xi go through the servers. I mean, these are incredible numbers. I'm sure if we added them all up, it would be like trillions.
All the money? It would be all the money.
All the revenue of these like 4 or 5 companies combined. It's like huge. It's huge. And the
Mac revenue beat too, AL. Just slightly though, compared to all the other numbers. It was 8 billion versus 7 basically year over year. So would have thought a little bit stronger on that from all the upgrades that we're seeing qualitatively at least.
Remember that a year ago, everybody needed to buy a computer for their house.
That's right.
So this is while a lot of companies had weak comparables from last year, like companies like Apple, who like had a lot of their really strong quarters into the pandemic. I myself had to buy a computer when we went on lockdown, and my phone broke, of course, like week 2 of quarantine. So I had to buy one of those also. So Apple got a nice amount of money from me when the pandemic started, and they're just continuing to accelerate that. And honestly, I just think that Mac numbers, services numbers, like there's just like all these other companies, there's just nothing bad in these stories.
Where's the bad part of the report? Like there's no bad part of this report either.
They only did 8 versus 7 billion was the bad part.
Yeah,
I love the headlines too. It's record sales every single year.
Yeah.
Well, that's like when
honestly, like I've been doing this my whole life, and I can't think of a time that such big companies consistently delivered such huge profits for so long. Like maybe there was a period of time in the 80s or something with the industrials like GE and stuff where they were just like, and then in the 90s there was this like thing with Intel and Cisco and stuff where it was like, oh, we're going to grow earnings 1% a year for the next 20 years, which of course only lasted like 3. But like but like it seems like, because I've done these calls for a long time, I just can't remember a bad earnings from any of these companies, you know? I mean, maybe that's why we've made people so much money in these investments over the years. They seem so obvious to me, and the numbers are so great, but they just keep growing like crazy.
Yeah, it's they basically are a proxy for everything we do at this point. So why wouldn't you own them? I mean, like everything you do all day, every day has something to do with one of these 4 or 5 tech companies.
I mean, it makes GE look like a little small cap. You know, I had to do GE earnings for this call this morning on the business channel. So I looked through GE's earnings and I was like, yeah, Apple could buy them and put them in the back pocket. You know what I mean? It's like
you did GE earnings.
GE's really trying to make a comeback. Our friends at T Row love them.
It around. You know, they're trying hard to make it great again. You know, I think they got a long way to go, but nor would I buy the stock even at 13. But you think about a company like Apple, they probably make like GE's revenue every like 60 days, you know?
We can play the game who can Apple buy all day long. But we know they're not going to buy anyone.
We know who they should have bought, right?
Sonos.
They could have bought Tesla. Is what they could have bought, and Netflix.
By Peloton, right?
Yeah. Netflix, yeah.
Yeah, they could have bought Netflix. They could have bought Tesla at the time. Peloton would be a great acquisition.
You can still buy Peloton. That's the same thing, you know.
No, it's worth way too much money. Apple doesn't do that. They don't buy companies for large amounts of money. They buy small companies and put them in their walled garden.
Yeah, and then pay us dividends. I mean, you can't. They keep paying the dividends, right?
Hey, any updates on Apple TV Plus? Is there anything going on there?
See nothing about the TV.
Nobody wants to talk about that one.
I started watching Ted Lasso.
Dude, I love Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Let's go to any questions so we don't put people to sleep here. You know, I was thinking, you know, finance has lost one of the biggest comedians lately, Dave Portnoy, using all his money in the stock market. He hasn't really been doing stocks for a while. And, you know,
what's up with him? What's up with him?
So here's a side note question if you want to jump into it after.
From the high, all his picks are getting murdered. He's finally realized that buying lots of speculative stocks on margin is a bad way to go. And he's lost money, you know, and so he doesn't want to talk about it because you go on you know, TV like days like today, you got to be an optimist, and he's so emotional. When he's losing money, he's not able to buy, and when he's making money, he's not able to sell. And this is why investing is hard. This is what I explained to him. Investing's really hard. You got to go in and buy on weakness. On days like today, I was aggressively buying stocks. That's what I was doing all morning, you know, besides TV shows. And when markets are at all-time highs and stocks are killing it, you got to look at your allocations and you got to sell some things, you know, and you got to rebalance. And this portfolio management thing is hard. That's why we exist as financial advisors, money managers, investment managers. It's not that easy to invest in the stock market. The easy part, in my mind, is the Apple, the Microsoft, the Starbucks, the Google, and the Tesla. That's the easy part. You got to own these stocks, right? The hard part is the new ideas. The hard part are the emerging companies. What are the future? What's the future? And investing in that. I think that's the hard part, is identifying the best companies in the world, because there's only a handful, you know?
That's what we
There's a
do all
question
day.
on here that says, Ross, would you buy JD or Alibaba with what is happening over in China?
None of the above.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm very troubled by China. I don't think they're doing a great job. I don't think it's the best way to run the economy or the world. You know, that's China.
Yeah. I mean, Alibaba is so powerful and important for China, but for us U.S. investors, I don't think the stock is a place.
It's been a dog. It's been an absolute dog for a long time.
Like, if I had to buy a Chinese stock today, like a Chinese stock, I would look at like Neo and Xiping, right?
Yep.
Et cetera, right?
There's another question on here that I'm sure you'll love. Why is Zuck selling so much Facebook? Ideas on what he's doing with it since cash is debasing.
Zuck has been selling Facebook for a very long time. You know, Zuck has a sale program. I think he sells like 100 million a week.
Yeah.
And there's a reason he does that, obviously, because he wants to cash out. And what he does with that money is he plows it into his Maui compound. He built this bunker.
Building over Lanai.
Yeah, totally. You know, he's reinvesting his money and enjoying his life and laughing at all of us hardworking people.
Oh, he has the foundation also. He has the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation.
Yeah.
So,
you know, people look into these insider sales often. A lot of times, like, they look at it too closely because a lot of these programs are already set up for these insiders to sell certain amounts of stock just over time. And a lot of the reason they do it is they're already rich, right? They just want to spend their money. Not that they don't believe in the company anymore or anything of that nature. It's just that we forget that they're actual humans and that they don't have to bet their entire lives on one thing.
Yeah, if you have like a $23 billion net worth and you sell $20 million a week of stock, you know, it's like peanuts. You know what I mean? It's like, and then they just issue themselves more stock. They just issue more. And it's like Bobby Kotick and Activision just giving himself 150 million after he cashed out $1 billion out of Activision. And he's doing a shitty job. He's doing a shit job. And it's just, you know, this is the problem with passive index funds. See, in my fund, we vote proxies. If CEOs do dumb stuff, we're going to vote proxies. At Vanguard, at BlackRock, you know, they own 10% of the U.S. market between the two companies. They don't vote anything. You could literally be the worst CEO in America and they vote for you because it's passive investing, and I'm sick of it. And that's why we started our fund, because there's got to be somebody that holds these CEOs accountable, even in the companies we like and we own. As shareholders, we need to defend our rights versus just like, oh, CEOs are just going to take money. It's just like this Robinhood IPO. Like Vlad gets $1 billion if the stock goes up. Okay. So like Vlad has like 0% of the company, you know, like right now, because he lost so much money for everybody. And so like they're going public and the stock has to go up, I think 2 times. And then Vlad will get $1 billion. So he doesn't give a crap about anything else than pumping Robinhood stock, selling off his position, getting his $1 billion option grant, and moving on. Same thing that happened at Palantir. The president of the company took $1 billion out of the company when it went public. Right off the bat. It's just cash out city. And God, investors, beware of these people. It's like Nikola. I was just talking in an interview about how Nikola is still a stock on the stock market worth over $5 billion. How?
it's not the only one. There's so many of those.
People don't know how to read.
It's not even read. I mean, it's a fraud, top to bottom. Like, isn't somebody going to step in and be like, all right, this isn't really a company? Like Lordstown Motors.
Lordstown was the other one I was thinking of too. Yeah, like, but Nicola's like everybody basically said that it's just a fraud, and then there's a bunch of people that are like, no, we're good. We're gonna roll the dice.
Yeah, we're good. You know,
I think that period of speculation is maybe almost over. Almost.
I don't know.
I saw several statements from clients recently that would disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the SPACs. Look at all the SPACs.
The SPACs have gotten crushed. You're right. The SPACs have gotten crushed, but people continue to sort of speculate and hope that these things, and it's not just SPACs, right? Like, what we have Virgin Galactic. Virgin Galactic trades at like infinity times revenue.
There is
why?
No
because
revenue. There's no revenue.
Branson went to space. Cool.
He didn't go to space.
Sorry. Branson like saw what space might be, and he got to the end.
He put correct. The ticket, you know what I mean? It was like he didn't really go in.
He went on a really high plane ride.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I got really high last night. That's Richard Branson. I'm so high. You know, I give Bezos credit because like Bezos like went on a rocket, you know, like a real rocket. So it's kind of like those rockets that I shoot with my kid, you know, it's super fun. You get to the apex and they come down, you know, we actually put monkeys in rockets, I think in 1961. And so, you know, this was just a little bit step up above that.
I was just at the Science Museum this weekend with my son looking at that.
Yeah. Remember?
I'm sure a lot of people wanted to invest in Boeing during his first planes too. But I mean, what if Richard Branson can actually find a way for us to travel faster? Would you not want to invest in that company?
We had a way to travel faster, and it was in 1985. It was called the Concorde. And the Concorde was a wonderful plane until it crashed. Everybody wants to get somewhere faster until they crash.
But see, it's not the idea. By the way, but I know you're bringing Bowen up because we watched that the Titans of North America on History Channel, which is awesome.
Great
But do you remember how much turmoil he went through before he actually landed all those contracts?
That's what I'm saying. This is the turmoil.
But that's the point, right? So doesn't mean that Virgin Galactic won't be successful at some point in their existence, but that could be 20 years from now.
And it might be somebody else.
20
years. It might not
years.
be Virgin Galactic.
You got 20 years? I got, I'm not betting something on a company that is pre-revenue that's worth, what is it worth? $20 billion these days?
It's worth a lot.
It's worth a lot of money for a company that has
infinity times revenue is the way I look at it.
We got two questions on Tesla if we want to talk about those.
Right, let's do that.
One was, why did no one ask about the Tesla tequila shortage on the conference call? But the real question is, what is going on with Tesla and Bitcoin? Striker Ace, the Tesla tequila people are actually our friends.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't discount the Tesla tequila. The Nosotros people are our friends, and they said this bottle is the biggest nightmare of their life, which is typical Elon, right? and so I think it is a bottle constraint issue, not a tequila constraint issue.
Yeah, Carl, you would not believe how many countries the CEO of Nosotros went to just to make that bottle.
Yeah, we got the whole behind the scenes. We should have them on sometime and do a Tesla tequila live stream with Nosotros tequila. I think that would do well. And
they think that the shortage is because you're having too much on updates. Too many
unfortunately, I haven't been able to do that for a while. I haven't had a 3 Gordon day in a long time. I was hoping to get a 3 Gordon day today, but I got a negative Gordon. So I was a buyer. What was the second question? It was Tesla and Bitcoin.
Tesla and Bitcoin. What's going on?
Nothing.
It's a distraction.
It's a distraction. I think the bigger issue is that Bitcoin is the future of finance. Companies like Tesla have put it on their balance sheets. We put it on our balance sheet. I think holding cash over any extended period of time is stupid. So Bitcoin is a wonderful alternative. Certainly, I think over time it'll prove to be a smart move for companies to diversify their assets into cryptocurrencies. And I'm 100% convinced that a cryptocurrency ecosystem will thrive over the next decade. And I was a buyer of Square today in many of my accounts. Bull. I'm a bull. Remember when those guys were coming in a few months back and they had like half their money in Tesla and half their money in Bitcoin, and we'd be like, maybe you should have a couple other stocks, and they'd be like, no. And I suspect those people will be quite wealthy in the end. I suspect, if they can hold on.
Concentration builds wealth, but it's diversification that preserves it. So if they don't blow up in time.
Well, it's diversification that keeps you from having a heart attack, actually.
That's the bigger problem.
See, if you're trading $5,000, man, you're like, oh, my $5,000's down to $3,000. It was a bad day. You post on TikTok. When you're trading $4 million, and you're down like 82,000 in a day, you're like, this game is not so fun. Maybe I should be diversifying.
We do that with the small speculative positions that I trade for fun. Like they're so tiny compared to the rest of my portfolio, but they cause me the most grief.
Yeah, listen. Pain is pleasure in the investing markets. Pain is pleasure.
Someone wants to know, will Tesla build a factory for solar roofs manufacturing to boost that part of the business?
They have a factory in Buffalo. That's the bane of their existence.
For Solar City, yeah.
I was going to say, aren't they going through some court proceedings recently?
It's the factory they don't talk about. It's the secret factory.
I'll tell you something. I'm getting some solar panels from Tesla right now at my house, and it's a pain. It's just taking forever. They can't get permits. They can't get people to come out and do the installation or at least figure out the design. It's not easy for them to get it out there.
Well, it's funny. I just had a meeting with a kid who works in the solar industry, and we were just discussing this issue of like dealing with the utilities is a nightmare for solar companies and solar installation. And they're having a lot of problems across the board with the PG&E and Edison, and they're just horrible people to work with in dealing with climate. The biggest actual issue stopping mass deployment of solar is the government. It's actually the fucking government, you know?
Yeah. And that's what they're saying. The permits, at least in California, are just a pain to really get through. So
yeah, what I was told is that crappy Gavin Newsom will never hit our climate goal of going to renewable energy because the California government doesn't approve stuff, believe it or not. You know, so it's time to recall Gavin Newsom. By the way, shout out Kevin Paraff for governor. He's on the paper today. He's got 3% of the vote. 3% of the vote. He's got to beat Larry Elder. I mean, Larry Elder is in the lead. I mean, Gavin Newsom probably is having a party that he has to run against Larry Elder. You know, when you've got smart young people like Kevin running for office, there's a lot better choices than these old politician wannabes. You know what I mean? But I've had enough of Newsom and all his. I think the slogan is "Stop the Bullshit," and I like that slogan. You know, it's a bunch of bullshit coming from Newsom.
Since we're talking about solar and renewable energy, there's another question on here. What are your thoughts on LIT, the ETF that we own? Half of it's Chinese stocks. I don't know how viable that is.
I mean, today was a viable situation for LIT. It's a certain amount of Chinese exposure, but it's also Korean and Japanese exposure and U.S. exposure and exposure to commodities. The Chinese stocks got murdered today, in particular, dragging LIT down with it, creating an opportunity for investors. So, once again, I was an aggressive buyer in the markets today. Any strong selling day, I'm a buyer in. The markets have been phenomenal this year. I think it was up 17.5% coming into today. Let's say you lose 1 or 2% today. Now you're up 15% and it's only July. So let's keep things in perspective here. We have a great market, and when you get these sharp pullbacks, it's an opportunity to add to your positions. When you're talking about battery technology, to me, that is one of the greatest opportunities over the next decade. And so when you get a 3, 4, 5% pullback, you add to the position.
I also think, Ross, and tell me what you think. I think these companies in particular, albeit Chinese, I think this is the baby with the bathwater situation, because China has an interest in securing these commodities for their country's economy. Like it's not a tech company trying to sort of antitrust their way into everyone's lives. So I don't.
That's
think,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think
agree,
these companies are going to be affected by this in the longer run. I think everyone's just running for the doors right now as far as Chinese goes, no matter what it is.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was like a computer, like what Brett said. It's just a computer that said, sell all Chinese stocks today, beep, and it just sells everything. And they don't really think about, like, why would China hurt NIO? NIO's not dominating anybody yet. Like, why would they hurt NIO? Like, what would be the advantage of people losing jobs or losing an edge in technology they actually have? So I look at it the opposite. This is just about punishing the big players for abusing their positions and showing who's boss. And China's going to support the EV sector, and I think it's an opportunity for long-term investors.
Yeah.
Got some more questions we could run through. Why specifically Bitcoin over Ethereum, Cardano, and a bunch of other altcoins, basically? We actually do like Ethereum too, or Ether. There's just a completely different way of viewing the world. Each of these currencies, kind of think of Bitcoin like digital gold, fixed supply, but there's not actually a lot of utility with it. It's very hard to spend. You don't want to go spend it at Starbucks. Versus Ether, there's actually a lot of applications with smart contracts, right, Ross?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I look at it.
And Ether has a great catalyst at the end of this year, upgrading the system to 2.0 network, going to proof of stake.
I think you got to own both, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What else?
Logitech is down 10%. What happened?
Yeah, nothing happened to Logitech except that they guide low, right? Why don't you tell us, Eva?
They mentioned in their report about a flat expectations. So moving forward, maybe plus to 5% in terms of revenue. Where I see it is that they're guiding low just to make sure, but also the fact that COVID is kind of coming back. So all these things in terms of buying new things for a hybrid office, maybe not as much anymore. We'll see.
Well, what did we just do at GK? We just bought more stuff for the hybrid office. So we bought more cameras and we bought more lights for our different rooms at the company. And I think many companies that were expecting to come back are now not coming back. And I think it bodes really well for Logitech. But I think their super conservative guidance after super good numbers, it's an opportunity for investors. And that, the stock's been doing very well over time. So we buy on these earnings pullbacks. This has been a trade we've been doing for a while, where when a stock reports earnings and it gets hammered, we just buy it the next day. It pretty much makes money most of the time because you get this overreaction selling, and then people read the reports and realize, hey, these are good numbers. Why'd they sell the stock again?
Yeah, as long as the long-term narrative is still intact, like that's really what you have to look at rather than like that specific quarter. Like
right.
That you want to see if the entire growth story is still there rather than if they missed the revenue by a few $100 million off some analysts that missed something themselves.
But they didn't miss revenue. That's the whole point, right?
They didn't. No.
That's the guide.
Yeah, but also this is a trend. Like a lot of the companies are beating, and we're seeing the stock going down after hours or next few days. So it's definitely something that's happening this season because valuations are very high, and I think you're seeing that being the case.
And also the rally into earnings that then turns to the sell-off. So like you're seeing stocks rally 2-3 weeks into earnings, and then it sells on earnings, and then it kind of bases and then starts making its move. For the next quarter, but I think valuations are high, so the sell the news is a pretty common event.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up in a minute here. Anything final thoughts, Eva? Any thoughts here?
As far as Logitech goes, I specifically like it again because it's probably going to be another one of your diversified companies. So you still have gaming, streaming, hybrid work, video. It's one to watch for sure.
Yeah. Hatem, final thoughts?
For me, Microsoft, man, it's the winner. It's the biggest winner in all of the stocks that we own right now.
Their numbers are great. Brett, any final thoughts?
Just another exciting earnings season. The market's clearly hot. People are clearly spending a lot of money. So we're getting out there. The consumer is definitely back, and trying to spend money hand over fist as fast as they can. So it's just an exciting time to be an investor for sure.
Now, can I sum up the young person's attitude towards Delta is basically I don't care, because the way I see it, I've been really nervous about the markets with Delta, and then it's like I go out and nobody gives a shit. And it's just packed everywhere, packed, tourists everywhere. So part of me is like, people just don't care anymore, and life has to go on, and business is good. Are young people feeling that way?
Yeah, I think that there's two groups of people, really. There's the group that's vaccinated that doesn't care because they're vaccinated now and they're going to go out. And even if they get sick, they think that that's just going to be a cold. And then there's the group that isn't vaccinated and doesn't believe in the narrative anyway, and they're still going to go out anyway. So I think that those are really the two main groups of people, and both of them are going out.
Yeah. Well, you can ask Brett because his current girlfriend gave him COVID. So it's a wonderful thing. So actually, COVID can create love. It can create closeness among friends. Fortunately, she was pretty enough to get through this setback, right, Brett?
Oh boy.
Yeah. Listen,
with that,
nothing is sacred. I know IL probably doesn't have anything to say, so we can just skip him. Just kidding. IL, final thoughts. Let's hear it from the master himself.
Honestly, I both Apple and Google to me are standouts, against the other ones also. These numbers are just insane. And once again, you got to own these companies. We talk about it in our investment meetings sometimes, and I say, why do we even bother? Let's just buy these companies on the dip if they happen and just move on.
That's what I was saying about investing the hard part about investing isn't picking Apple and Google and stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like the hard part about investing is what's the next Apple
Yeah.
or Google. And that's where we spend most of our time. IL's right. We don't spend a lot of time dissecting Microsoft because we're not going to sell it. So it doesn't matter. And so it's really, is it a buying opportunity or not? And so it's really about idea creation. And I think for investors, that's one of the most important things, is coming up with new ideas, meeting new companies, finding new executives with great vision, and then investing in those visions and helping people achieve them. That's the hard part of investing, and where we put the majority of our time is where's the innovation, where's the opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us on the Big Earnings Show today. We really appreciate your time and your support, the support of our firm, and of course our new and exciting ETF GK, where anybody anywhere can now take advantage of our stock picking and our 9 multi-thematic approach, 9 themes. I was thinking about adding a 10th theme, by the way, guys. I might be separating out crypto, fintech from the tech theme. I'm debating.
I agree with that, actually.
Separate theme.
And if you guys want a little bit more like specific info about your situation, feel free to go to our website too, fill out a contact form. We'll sit down with you for free, go through a consultation, do a deep dive into your situation, and get you set up with a real financial plan to really build wealth moving forward. And we're putting out a lot of this info on social as well. We're on Twitter, Instagram. So get our profiles, follow us on there, and you will have access to a ton of information.
Yeah, remember, money is power, and you want to empower yourself. It's through saving and investing, building your financial security. We have no minimums at our firm. We don't care how tall you are, how short you are, what color you are, what your sexual orientation is. We are the only firm that does not care at all. We help everybody equally, except people who are a pain in the butt. So thank you very much for joining us. And but that's a small percentage of people. So thank you for joining us today. Have a great afternoon. And of course, another profitable day for the big cap companies. And thank you for joining us on the Big Earnings Show today.
Thank
Cheers.
you.